Hello and good evening. Welcome to News 360. My name is Solis Rose Corte.
And I am Parkwisi Asari. In the next 60 minutes, we bring you some local plus international stories.
News 360 Headlines is brought to you by...
In this evening, President Akufo-Addo assents to 5 bills, including the Special Prosecutor Bill, on the first working day of 2018.
Also ahead, mental health patients in Ghana would have to endure some more weeks without drugs until new drugs are procured.
Colleges of Education Teachers Association of Ghana issues ultimatum to government to start working on their market premium or face their wrath.
Later in business, we take a look at how the Ghanaian stock market fared in the year 2017.
And on the international front tonight, a leader of militant group Boko Haram has released a video claiming it carried out a series of attacks in northeast Nigeria over the Christmas period.
We've got details of all these plus many more coming up in the next 60 minutes.
Let's do our first story tonight, and President Akufo-Addo has assented to 5 bills, including the Special Prosecutor Bill. At a brief signing ceremony at the Flagstaff House, the President was confident the laws will promote effective development, enhance and deepen Ghana's democracy.
The 5 bills also include Northern Development Authority Bill, the Middle Belt Development Authority Bill, Coastal Development Authority Bill, and the Zongo Development Fund Bill. President Akufo-Addo spoke about the importance of signing the bills to the development of the country's democracy and infrastructural enhancement. President Akufo-Addo first spoke about the office of the Special Prosecutor Bill.
So it's gone through a lot of controversy. But my hope and expectation is that the establishment of this office is going to be an important step in our collective determination to root out corruption in the public life of our country. All of us know that it has been a major bane in the development of Ghana. And hopefully this office, that is its intention, will make that contribution and make sure that public officials, past and present, are held to account for their actions, and that corrupt acts will no longer go without investigation and, if necessary, sanction.
He again spoke about the other development bills.
In the course of the campaign, we indicated that we wanted to try a new approach to the development of our country, a new approach that went towards a decentralization of the development paradigm, and to have a way of funding directly the development needs of the constituencies. Our belief is that the centralized approach to development that we have witnessed virtually the entire period of our independent life has not been successful in delivering development at the grassroots of our society. And therefore, we made this commitment that we would spend every year on each constituency the equivalent of $1 million. And that these developmental authorities that are now going to be put in place will be the vehicle for the management of these funds and the expenditure of the equivalent of $1 million per constituency commitment.
All right, so let's stay a while longer on this story, which incidentally is one of our top stories for this hour. We'll speak to Tony Dougbay. He's a member of the Citizens Movement Against Corruption and an anti-corruption campaigner. He joins us on the phone lines. Thank you very much, sir, for your time. So we just saw the president assent to 5 key bills, including this very critical one, the Special Prosecutors Bill. Is this an indication the president is sending a strong signal about his commitment to corruption, or just one of those political moves?
Well, it's at least he made the promise to put a bill like this or an act like this, and he has done it, and so that is a commitment to meeting his campaign promises. I think a lot has already been discussed about the structure of the act itself, so one will not delve into it. But I think citizens have the right to be skeptical, because there are so many laws, structures that have been put in place to fight corruption, but many of them have not been effective because often they have been starved of the resources with which to do the work. So I think whether this is going to work or it's not going to work, it's going to be a matter of time. It's going to be dependent on the resources that the government is willing to give this body, and also the amount of independence that is going to have to be able to prosecute, as the president said, both past and present government officials. So at least the president has indicated his intention. He has kept his campaign promise. Some people have criticized the structure of the bill. I think as they say, the sweetness of the pudding is in the eating.
It's definitely in the eating, Mr. Dougbay. We do know also, Mr. Dougbay, that this was a political campaign promise. Do you suspect the Special Prosecutor's Office will be used to victimize the NPP's political opponents, especially those from the previous government?
Well, I hope not. I hope that will not be the case. I hope the president is sincere about his statement of this is fair to prosecute both past and present, and who are in government now is the NPP who are in government. So we should remember that the president, it was during his time as Attorney General in the Kufuor administration that a member of the government was prosecuted for some missing money that was supposed to have been missing, that was meant for the Black Stars. So he has some element of track record, and he seems to be saying the right things, and one can just trust his sincerity that he really means it. But it comes back to the resources for this institution to work.
Right. Tony Dougbay is a member of the Citizens Movement Against Corruption and also an anti-corruption campaigner. Thank you very much for your time, Solis.
Now let's move away from issues of that and do some health news, where mental health patients in Ghana would have to endure some more weeks without drugs until new drugs are procured. Even though processes have begun to procure drugs for mental health treatment, information from the Mental Health Authority indicates it will take some time, since most of the drugs are from outside the country.
For 7 years, psychiatric hospitals across the country have been operating without procured medicines needed for healthcare delivery. Drugs for treatment has mainly been dependent on NGOs and benevolence of individuals. This is taking a toll on effective mental health care delivery across the country. Families who cannot afford the expensive drugs from private hospitals resort to alternative means of treatment, including prayer camps and spiritual healers. This, according to the head of communication at the Mental Health Authority, Kweku Brobe, has negatively affected mental health treatment.
Those things that, they go into these alternative means, that they employ, does not help. And in most of the time, they come back again with an aggravated condition, and then you tend to spend more resources, treating these cases, which would have been perhaps nipped in the bud, at a more earlier stage.
Even though procurement processes have begun, he was unsure when drugs could arrive at the hospitals, since most of the drugs are bought overseas.
This is being done by the Ministry of Health's procurement team. So in as much as we are in contact with them, we know that the process has started. And again, most of the psychotropics are brought in from overseas. So definitely, I mean, you do expect some time lapse.
Recently, TV3 reported on some patients at the Accra Psychiatric Hospital who are relapsing and whose state of health continue to threaten health workers due to lack of medications.
Hopefully, with this procurement process that's in place, when the medication comes in, as and when, I mean, it lasts, you know, we will trigger the next procurement, I mean, process. And we hope that, I mean, you know, within that period, we are able to go through the processes so that we do not have that shortage.
For many years, the Accra Psychiatric Hospital has been in the news for varied reasons, ranging from shortage of consumables and congestion.
You're still watching News 360 live from our news hub here in Accra. We now turn attention to one of our top stories this hour, and the Old Students Association of the Ghana Secondary Technical School has put together a legal team to fight for justice for the student who was allegedly shot by a police detective. The legal team, comprising old students of the school, will offer legal advice and strategies for a proper execution of the case. Well, the prosecutor on the case is a police officer, but the All Students Association fear the case may be compromised, hence their decision. What the move, they say, is to also help ensure that justice is served. The students have also hinted of a setting up of a legal fund to assist the family of the deceased in case they run out of funds. The All Students are offering the legal advice and strategy to the prosecutor of the case after a police officer shot a final year student of the Ghana Secondary Technical School, Lawrence Baidu, and injured 2 others, while the suspect, Detective Shaibwe J, is scheduled to reappear in court on January 12. Let's go live now to Skype and speak to Nana Sam Ekwama Boaten. He's the first Vice President of the Ghana Secondary Technical School Alumni Association. Thank you very much, sir, for your time. Good to have you. You are putting together a legal team to support the prosecution of this very case. Does this suggest you have no confidence in the police administration?
In fact, when we got to hear about the news, we were very sad that this could be happening in this current area in Ghana, that a schoolboy just going to a park is shot dead. And after speaking to the family, we realized that we, as an old student of such a school like GSTS, need to do our to ensure that this is done. And that is what we've done in setting up a legal team. Some of these lawyers are old students and others to ensure that we give good advice both to the parents and the prosecution to make sure that it will be transparent and openly conducted.
I clearly understand that, Dr. Ekwama, but what is going to be the exact role of this legal team you intend to assemble, keeping in mind that the state has a sole responsibility of essentially prosecuting murder cases on behalf of victims?
At this stage, they are in an advisory role, advising the parents on their legal rights, and also any help that we can give both to the police and the prosecution, since we are also doing our own, research and some investigations. So anything that we come across that would be of good importance to the police, we are passing on to them, as well as the prosecution.
I've got to say a big thank you to you, Mr. Donna Sam Ekwama Boateng, the first Vice President of the Ghana Secondary Technical School Alumni Association, who have set up a team to help in the prosecution of that murder case involving a student of that school. You're still watching News 360 live on TV3.
News 360 Skype Interview is brought to you by MTN. Everywhere you go.
Now let's do some other stories. And an associate professor of political science is cautioning former President Rawlings not to meddle in petty internal party squabbles, else he would not be taken seriously. Professor Ransford Jampo is of the view this would again undermine his image and integrity as a former president and a statesman.
Professor Ransford Jampo was responding to the decision by the former President Rawlings not to criticize the sitting government, but rather focus on his NDC party. According to the former president, the call on him to unleash criticism on the perceived corruption in the NPP government was unacceptable. He explained that he would rather focus on dealing with the corruption in his party to protect the integrity underpinning the formation of the party. However, an associate professor of political science, Professor Jampo, says the decision by former president defies his own probity and accountability maxim. He impressed on the former president to muster courage and also criticize the sitting government for any wrongdoing.
He should be a statesman and just remain behind the scenes. And where necessary, you come out to give wise counsel, not to one particular party, but to the nation. Okay, using the principles of equity, social justice, probity, and accountability. He should be able to hold all regimes accountable and to keep all regimes, on their toes.
Professor Ransford Jampo again urged the former president to leave above petty internal party politics of the NDC and rather focus on offering counsel to the current president, Nana Akufo-Addo.
You look at the statement, his speech, he was essentially using those principles to explain the electoral defeat of the NDC that is already in opposition. I think that is completely relevant. We all know why the NDC lost. The principles must be used to keep the existing regime, the current government, on its toes.
Professor Jampo, who is currently the director of Center for European Studies at the University of Ghana, cautioned former President Rawlings not to impose his views on the party or risk facing stiffer resistance from members.
A political party is an institution. It cannot be run like a spiritual church that will die when its founder dies. Okay, and so he must allow the internal democratic structures and decision-making process of the party to flow so that he can continue to maintain his image, reputation, and respect within his party.
Now, mixed reactions have greeted the setting up of a special television license court to deal with people who refuse to pay the mandatory TV licenses, with some arguing that the state broadcaster does not deserve the money. A cross-section of the public questioned how the revenue will be utilized.
The Ghana Broadcasting Corporation officially relaunched the TV license fees collection in 2015. This followed years of non-payment. The new rate per the law indicates that domestic television users are to pay between 36 and 60 cedis for one or more TV sets in a household. TV set repairers and sales outlets are to pay an annual sum of between 60 to 240 cedis. After 2 years of non-payment by TV users, 11 special courts have been set up to prosecute defaulting TV users and operators. This has ignited some public outrage.
Raising court for this matter will not be necessary until the matter is being informed and people are aware of it. That's all. People are going to pay the tax.
I'm looking at the practicality of it and the feasibility of it. If only that can solve the problem. But I don't think, personally, from my point of view, I don't think it will curb the issue of not paying TV licenses.
To me personally, it's not too attractive. And even the number of Ghanaians that patronize that station, I don't know.
a cross-section of the public doubt the money will be appropriately utilized.
These days we pay taxes and people misuse them. Even those who collect taxes, what is the guarantee that they will present good receipt to present it to government?
Why must we pay the TV license? And what must we use that money for? That is the question. If you know how we are going to use the money for the TV license, I think people are going to pay.
All right, so we're still sticking with this particular issue, and since lots of criticisms and outrage has actually been garnered regarding this issue, let's take a look at screens and look at the breakdown that was initially proposed when there was the amendment that was in at the end of 2014. And if you remember, in 2015, Dr. Charles Rekubrobe took GBC and 3 other stakeholders to court regarding this particular one. So this was the distribution formula, or the sharing formula that was proposed then, with GBC taking 72%, the National Media Commission, the NMC, taking 4%, 4% also going to the Media Development Fund, the GIBA, or the Ghana Independent Broadcasters Association, taking 15%, and the Film Fund taking 2% rather, and then GBC again taking 3% for the management of the TV license fees, making them the largest beneficiaries in this particular sharing, making it 75% for GBC. Now I would like to get more into details regarding this particular one. Now, if you also know that 11 different courts have been set across the country, with 2 of them being in the Greater Accra region, so the rest being in all the other regions, to prosecute those who go against this particular law. Now, let's get onto the phone lines and speak to Mr. Danso. That's Andrew Danso in Nkra. He is the president of the Ghana Independent Broadcasters Association, GIBA. Good evening, sir. Many thanks for joining us.
Good evening.
Right.
And good evening to your viewers.
Okay. Now, what is the current breakdown? What we just showed viewers is what was proposed initially. Now, what is the current breakdown for the license, and who supervises the utilization of this fund?
There is no current breakdown. I'm not sure about any current breakdown. I don't know what you mean by current breakdown.
Well, the initial proposition was what we just showed on the screen, where GBC would take 75%, with the rest shared among the rest of the shareholders. We just want to know whether we're still sticking with this sharing formula, or there's been a change or an amendment.
Okay, so we need to understand how the TV license proposal has come about. Over the years, I mean, TV license is not a new thing. The proposals, or let me say the law for a TV license, had been in existence for some time. It was taken to Parliament for an amendment. In the course of which there was the need for some kind of public education to take place. And it was found out that all the stakeholders in terms of broadcasting, TV broadcasting in the country, needed to play a role in it. So the private sector was also brought in. It was also found out that apart from what happens, the private sector also does some amount, quite a high amount of public education, public broadcasting, that if there is a need for the private sector to increase those activities to reach the various parts of the country altogether, they needed to be helped. So then a proposal was mooted. I am not sure, but I think it was by the National Media Commission, which mooted the idea of a kind of a distribution when the money is collected. Now, the fund had not even grown. So at the time when the amendment was passed, then the idea was mooted for the kind of a sharing, so that when the money comes, then everybody will be supported, and then we'll be able to perform our role. Now, this was challenged in court, and the court said, listen, that is not what the interpretation is. What it's supposed to be is that it's supposed to go to a common TT. You are not supposed to share it. And so that was the end of the story. And so GBC went back to collect their levy, as it were. So they've been collecting the levy. Okay. And so that's what is going on.
All right. Now, I'm sure you've heard about the rants and by some sections of the public. What do you make of them?
What did the public say, if you can help me with that?
Well, basically, from most of our Vox Pops, they don't understand the reason why they should be paying and why they should, GBC should be collecting that GBC does not deserve it.
Well, so fine. Like, I think that aspect of it would have to be explained by the one who is collecting. Because they have been given it to collect, and therefore they have to defend that mandate that has been given them to collect the money. From the private sector, from the private broadcaster's view, I believe strongly that we only come in when we need support. We will continue to go back to the national city to ask that certain infrastructure should be put in place to enable the private practitioner to carry out his role in national development. We will continue to go back to the public and ask the public to play their role in asking the administrators of the national city to put certain things in place, to put certain infrastructure in place, to make sure that when you are doing business, as far as broadcasting is concerned, and you are a private individual, you are able to do your work and come out with what you set out to achieve. We will continue to do this.
Okay.
It means putting certain things in place. It means going to the public to ask for some little contribution. Have to make sure that the public understands this. Now, what is happening at the moment, which we believe is creating all this noise and hullabaloo, is the fact that the public has not been properly. You see, we talk about education. Education is not just one thing. Your grandfather was educated. Probably your father was educated. And you yourself have gone through education. And you're educating your child today. It is a continuous process. You have to be at it day in and out. You don't do it one day and say, but we have told them. Every day, there is a new crop of people who are going in there. The message that you are giving out is changing. The message is being challenged.
Indeed, it is. But can we compel GBC to stop playing commercials or adverts since we are being compelled to pay the TV license fees?
Come again.
Can we compel GBC to stop playing commercials or adverts?
Let me put it this way. There is also another aspect of the operations of GBC which needs to be very independent. Now, if GBC is working for the public, it is the public which is funding GBC's activities. Now, what the public says they want, I believe GBC will have to listen. So if the public comes to the point they say, listen, we don't want these things, we don't want that, we are not interested in this. You need to be able to collect and collate the views and be able to present it to them and get them to do what you are expecting them to do.
All right, sir. Thank you very much for joining us this evening. I was just on the phone lines with Andrew Danso Eninkra, the president of the Ghana Independent Broadcasters Association, GIBA, and we're talking about the TV license fees and what GIBA, how or where GIBA stands regarding that. Let's move over and do some other stories, Pakwisi.
Right, so let's go away from TV licenses. The usual vehicular congestion at the Driver and Vehicle Licensing Authority on the first working day of each year was not the same this year. With ease, vehicle owners went through the process to obtain the 2018 number plates.
One item which reminds us of a transition into a new year has always been vehicle registration number plate. Unlike previous years, where the car park of the Driver and Vehicle Licensing Authority gets congested on first working day of the year, with vehicle owners hoping to register their vehicles to reflect the new year, the situation was different this year. The process was smooth, with the DVLA and SEPS embarking on their routine checks before registration. We gathered inspection of vehicles started on November 15 last year ahead of this year's registration. This was part of measures to ease the usual congestion on a day like this. The congestion usually occurs because lots of car owners wait for several months to enter the new year before registration.
Anytime you want to sell a car in Ghana, they look at when the car was registered. So, for instance, I brought this car. This is like my car is like 2016 model, BMW. Now, if I register in 2017, people will look at it like, it's been in Ghana 2017.
Will 18 do for you?
Oh, that means it's a new car. It's a new car. So you want 18 for the starting for the year.
Not everyone in this queue is here for vehicle registration.
I had an accident, so I need to bring it here for the police to scrutinize and see if it's roadworthy or not, and then the extent of the damages. If there is any costs to it, they would put everything in the reports for me.
It appears the situation is having a negative impact on businesses and lined up in front of the authority. This period last year was a peak season for this photographer, but he cannot tell the same story this year.
Low, typically low, because previous years great.
In the previous years, the business was very good, but due to the new system here, we hardly get people to take photos. Available statistics at the authority indicate that on the first working day of 2017, 470 vehicles were registered, while 537 were registered on the second day.
Now, the Colleges of Education Teachers Association of Ghana, CETAG, has issued an ultimatum to government to start working on their market premium or face their wrath. The association is also pressing the government to constitute a governing council for colleges of education by the end of this month.
The Colleges of Education Teachers Association of Ghana, CETAG, claimed the absence of governing council was affecting the smooth running of the colleges of education across the country.
Major decisions that have to be taken by the colleges cannot be taken because the principals have got their own limitations. In some cases, too, some ad hoc, some decisions that are arbitrary and discretionary are also taken, which we believe is not the best.
The Secretary of CETAG, Prince Obinhima, described as discriminatory the non-enjoyment of market premium by tutors of colleges of education.
It is clear that all teachers in tertiary dispensation in Ghana here, talk of the tertiary, the mainstream universities, talk of the technical universities, the teachers over there are entitled, they enjoy market premium. You cannot tell us that we who have also, by this act, the colleges, also as tertiary institutions, you cannot tell us because of some government white paper we are not entitled to.
The association has issued an ultimatum to government to inaugurate the governing councils for colleges of education by January 31. They again wanted the implementation of the market premium to CETAG members to be concluded by April 30. CETAG has warned to resort to other alternatives should government fail to meet its demand.
Welcome back to News 360. It's now time for some business news, and the GSE composite index ended the year at 52.73%, an impressive performance over the previous year's performance of negative 15.33%. Now, TV3 Business takes a look at the top 5 best performing stocks for the year 2017.
The Ghana Stock Exchange in 2017 saw a very strong performance, trading some 295 million volume of shares at the value of 465 million cedis, an increase of 91.87% over the previous year's figure. The GSE Composite Index similarly ended the year impressively at 52.73% and the Financial Stock Index at 49.51%. The Managing Director of First Bank Brokerage, Edem Akpenyo, says the market's performance is a marked improvement over expected projections.
Very interesting rises in the market, and I think that it's been quite good. This year we had the financial stock index underperforming the composite as a whole. Usually we will have the financial index outperforming in a good year. See, the majority of the best performers were not in the financial sector, so that led to the CI outperforming the financial sector index.
top 5 best stocks for the year 2017 on the Ghana Stock Exchange is led by Benso Oil Palm Plantation, which appreciated by 194% in value, followed by Goil, which gained 144%, and the Standard Chartered Bank 107%.
Prior years, we have seen a lot of demand for BOP shares which were not available, and that had pushed up prices in the year 2017, which had caused it to do so well. And I think that we can expect that we may have some good performance from BOP again this year.
The others are HFC Bank, which appreciated in value by 85%, and Total Ghana gaining 78%.
We are looking at not only HFC doing local business, but now that they are part of an international group, that means that they are open to get international business and all that. We are also hoping that there will be some model changes that will make the company more profitable, more aggressive, and all those things. They recently undertook a rights issue, which was oversubscribed. So you can understand that there's a lot of investor belief that this company is going to come up and show some very positive results. That, I think, led to also their impressive performance on the market.
Now let's do some other stories. And a day after the long holidays, the ministries, as well as various departments and agencies, have resumed work in earnest. A visit to most of the ministries showed workers busily going about their schedule.
After enjoying the long holidays, going back to work appeared to be a Herculean task. However, as duty calls, civil servants reported to work on time on the first working day of the new year. Though activities were slow, work was ongoing. At the Ministry of Finance, directors and the minister were already in a closed-door meeting at the time of our visit. The story was no different at the Trade, Transport and Works and Housing Ministries. Now, with the various ministries visited early this morning, workers are back in full force, although most of the workers are on leave and others are also absent for one reason or the other. But it is quite evident from what we saw that most of them have started work busily after the festive period. For TV3 News, Nanekia Mensa Abrampa reporting.
Now let's do some agricultural business. And some crop varieties in the northern region are nearing extinction owing to severe climate change. Ava Atiboka reports late and erratic rains have made it impossible for the cultivation of some crops.
The agriculture calendar in the northern parts of Ghana is fast experiencing change. Rains are becoming incredibly erratic owing to climate change threatening food security.
Yore ma polekpani kang marko yore de anyin zanza kopotinza atetamuga chenleta.
Farming is now a struggle. We do not get rains at the right time to sow, so we are mostly trying our luck and praying to God for what to feed on.
It was late because normally cropping starts in northern region in those good days, late or mid-April. But you can see that this year, many of the farmers planted in June.
Sowing is expected to be done in April, while harvesting of some early maturing varieties done in August. But farmers are always behind the calendar. In late July 2017, some farmers were still making holes to sow with no hope of yield. Others simply abandoned their farms. A few defied the dreadful weather and sowed with the early erratic rains. The rain ceased afterwards.
A serious disaster. We have never experienced this kind of drought for the past 30 years. As you see the crops this way, it's because of the drought. The last time it rained is about 3 weeks now. And because of that, every farmer in this community is a frustrated man.
Year on year, farmers in the 3 regions of the north have resorted to abandoning the cultivation of some traditional crops to fast-yielding crops.
We're farming more than 8 crops, be it millet, be it bambaram beans, be it a certain local food we call adwa, and cassava, yam, were all part of our farming activities. But those things I have mentioned, those crops I have mentioned, they are no more doing well here. If you plant it, you won't get good yield. Left with only maize and the rice. And then those two crops, one is affected by the army worms.
Some known crops cultivated in the region are no longer available even though it is their season. Farmers charged government to help stop the illegal felling of trees, which according to them is affecting rainfall pattern.
That's all for business news on News 360. We'll be right back with some sports news. Don't go away.
You're welcome back to News 360 live from our news hub here at Desawe in Accra. On the international front now, a leader of militant group Boko Haram has released a video claiming it carried out a series of attacks on northeast Nigeria over the Christmas period.
It's now time for some entertainment news.
Entertainment news is brought to you by
And in entertainment tonight, Hollywood actor Boris Kujo has urged Ghanaian movie producers to tell more African stories in their productions. The 44-year-old spirited actor is in Ghana on a short stay to host the CAF Awards.
Hello?
Ghanaian-born American-based actor Boris Kujo says the movie industry should focus on telling the real African story to the outside world. The superstar, who is in Ghana with his family to host the CAF Awards, said a lot of westernization is probably one of the basic causes of the dwindling fortunes of the movie industry in the country.
We have to look inwards. We have to look at the beauty and the richness of our culture and what we have to offer in all of its diversity. Admiring America is really admiring yourself, because everything from music to movies, hip-hop, that all came from here. This is the original place where those cultural influences first were developed and started.
Having acted in movies like Resident Evil, Addicted and Real Husbands of Hollywood, he said he had plans of connecting with local producers, writers and other stakeholders to give the industry a push. Born Boris Cyril Tay Nate Ufuate, the father of two, stated also that inclusion of more youth would guarantee even more success and global recognition for the Ghanaian craft.
My mission has always been to encourage youth to use the technology that's available for them. Part of the solution is to empower yourselves to use technology that's available to produce and to distribute content that's relevant.
Talking about his trip to Ghana, Boris said it was a privilege to introduce his kids to his fatherland and show them the rich culture and its significance. He, however, noted that hosting this year's edition of CAF Awards in Ghana was a dream come true.
Well, hopefully the year 2018 will bode some, positive news for the movie industry in
Absolutely.
Ghana.
Well, that's how we wrap up for News 360 here at Adesawe. Thanks for watching. My name is Park Husiasari.
And I am Solis Rose Quarter. You can also log on to www.3news.com for more news updates. Good evening.